My neighbor's security camera was pointed directly at my bedroom window. Politely asked him to reposition it. He replied, "You shouldn't be so interesting." Covered the window completely. The following day I saw a drone hovering inside my backyard. When I knocked on his door, he said, "It's legal airspace." I spent 3 nights studying the law. What I did afterward made him move out without saying a word. I never imagined I'd end up in a conflict with the man next. Or, I had moved to Helena, Montana to avoid drama, not to find more of it. After my divorce, I purchased a small 2-bedroom house. Nothing fancy, just something I could call mine. Quiet street, older neighbors, wide open skies and peaceful nights. That's what I was looking for. And for a while that's exactly what I had. Then Glenn moved in next. He was around 40, maybe a bit younger than me. He mostly kept to himself. At first I didn't think much about him. He didn't wave back when I greeted him, but that didn't bother me. Some people are just like that. I didn't mind. I wasn't trying to make friends. I just wanted peace. That changed quickly. About a week after he moved in, I noticed something strange. I was in my upstairs bedroom, closing the curtains for the night, when I noticed a blinking red light. I leaned in closer and saw a security camera on his garage, pointed directly at my bedroom window. I stared at it for a full minute. At first, I tried to convince myself it wasn't aimed at me. Maybe it only seemed that way. Maybe it was just to cover his driveway. I went outside, walked across my lawn, and checked the angle from different spots. Nope. That camera was aimed exactly at me. Not the yard, not the fence, not even the kitchen, just my bedroom window. The next day I went over and knocked on his door. He opened it halfway and just stared. No greeting, no smile. I said, "Hey, I noticed your camera facing right into my bedroom. Would you mind adjusting it?" He didn't blink. He just smirked and said, "You shouldn't be so interesting." Then he closed the door in my face. I stood there shocked. Not angry yet, just completely stunned. Thought, did that really just happen? I went home and pulled a heavy blanket over the window. I made sure not a single bit of light could come through. I felt sick and exposed. I hardly slept that night. I couldn't stop thinking about that camera, the red light blinking, knowing he was watching. The next morning I took my dog outside around 9 a.m., still tired from barely sleeping. And there it was, a drone hovering over my backyard about 20 feet up, completely still, quietly buzzing. I stared at it for a few seconds, frozen. Then I raised my hand and waved, tilted slightly, almost like it acknowledged me. Then it zipped sideways and vanished over the fence. I stood there with my coffee, shaking. That thing had been watching me again. This time it was moving, tracking me. I was done being polite. I stomped over and knocked on his door again, this time harder. He opened it, wearing that same smug expression. "Did you fly a drone over my yard?" he asked. I shrugged. "It's legal airspace." Then he shut the door. That was when I realized I wasn't dealing with an unaware neighbor. This wasn't an accident. He was doing it on purpose. He wanted me to feel helpless, like I was always being watched. I spent the next 3 nights researching every law I could find. I read about drone regulations, privacy laws, and local ordinances. I found legal cases on voyeurism, harassment, and surveillance. I barely slept again. But this time it wasn't from fear, it was from determination. I called my high school friend, Nate, who works in county zoning. He guided me to some Montana property rights codes. Then I contacted Maria, an old friend from Missoula who's a licensed private investigator. She told me exactly how to document everything: times, photos, patterns. By the 4th day I had a full notebook Notes, highlighted laws, circled statutes. And a plan. First I needed proof. I bought an inexpensive, motion-activated camera and installed it under the roof of my back deck. It was aimed at the sky. I kept my backyard lights off at night and waited. Didn't take long. On the second night the drone returned. My camera recorded everything. It hovered for about 12 minutes. At one point it dropped low enough for me to see the faint reflection of my window on its glossy black body. Then it zipped away. I reviewed the footage frame by frame. Had to be him. I also took down the blanket from my bedroom window. Instead, I installed a small infrared laser pointer. Something Maria recommended. You can't see it with your eyes, but it shows up like a spotlight on night vision cameras. I aimed it directly at the lens of his camera. It wouldn't damage anything, but it would ruin the footage. Sure enough, the next morning, the camera angle had shifted slightly. Still pointed at my house, but not as obviously. I left the IR laser on anyway. Let him waste his memory card. A few days later the drone returned. But this time I was ready with something new. Signal jammer. I knew it wasn't legal to use one, but I wasn't planning to keep it on for long. Just enough to knock the drone out of the air. When I saw the drone hovering again, closer than usual, I flipped the switch. It twitched, froze in place, then spiraled straight down into my backyard. I ran over before it could auto-recover. I removed the battery and placed it in a box. The camera on the drone was still warm. The next day, I took it straight to the sheriff's department. I filed a complaint, showed them the footage from my backyard camera, and explained everything in detail. This time they took it seriously, especially since I had the actual drone in my hands. But they told me the same thing. Unless I had proof that Glenn was the one flying it, they couldn't do much. No fingerprints, no serial number tying it to him. Just suspicion. I needed stronger evidence. So, I filed for a civil restraining order. I gathered everything I had. Photos, videos, a written timeline, copies of messages from Maria and Nate, and even a diagram showing the camera's view from Glenn's property to my bedroom window. I filed it at the county courthouse that Monday. 3 days later, a process server taped the order to Glenn's garage door. I watched from my window. Glenn came out, tore it down, read it, then stared straight at my house. I didn't flinch. He didn't say anything, didn't come over. But something shifted after that. The drone never came back. Not once. Then the security camera vanished. I noticed it was gone while mowing the lawn. All that was left was an empty bracket where the dome camera used to be. Then came the U-Haul. Glenn started packing. Took him 2 days. I watched from behind the blinds. No friends helped him. Just Glenn and a man I didn't recognize. They worked quickly and hardly spoke. Glenn didn't say goodbye. He didn't apologize. He just left. But that wasn't the end of it. Because Glenn didn't know I still had more planned. And he never saw my last move coming. At first, I thought it was over after he moved out. For a few weeks, things were quiet, peaceful like before. Then, a letter appeared in my mailbox. No return address, just my name typed on the front. Inside was a single sheet of paper. It said, "People like you ruin neighborhoods. Watch your back." That was it. No signature. No prints. Just a threat. I read it 3 times. Then I sat down and laughed. Not because it was funny, but because I was exhausted, angry, and completely done being afraid. Because I was exhausted, angry, and completely done being scared. At first, I thought Glenn had sent the letter. Maybe he mailed it just before leaving. But something didn't feel right. Glenn always seemed like the type who would smirk right to your face. Not hide behind anonymous notes. He liked control, not cowardly threats. So I asked myself, who else knew what was going on? That's when it clicked. The man who helped Glenn move out. I had only seen him once, but something about him felt familiar. I couldn't place it right away. Then I remembered. I had seen him a few weeks earlier, standing in Glenn's driveway, smoking a cigarette. He was talking loud enough that I heard his voice through my window. One line stuck in my mind. Just ignore her. Let her get used to it. Back then, I assumed he was just a friend or maybe a relative. But now, after the letter, it didn't sit right with me. I needed answers. I started asking around the neighborhood. Nothing obvious, just casual questions. Then I went to the gas station down the street where Glenn used to buy cigarettes. I asked the guy behind the counter, Carl. Ever seen the guy who helped Glenn move? Carl nodded. Yeah, he comes in sometimes. Drives that loud black Silverado, right? That was all I needed. A few days later, that same truck slowly rolled down my street. It didn't stop. Just coasted by, window down. He was watching my house. Took photos. Got the license plate. Noted the time. Then I sent everything to Maria. She ran a check. The name came back. Travis Norwood. He lived 2 counties over. No job listed. But he did have a few minor offenses. Trespassing, disorderly conduct, illegal surveillance. Pattern was forming. It wasn't over. It had just evolved. I wasn't just dealing with a creepy neighbor anymore. I was facing someone who had experience pushing limits. And I had to know why. Maria made a call to someone she knew at a private investigation firm. They dug deeper and found out Travis had done contract work before. Installing surveillance equipment, smart home systems, security cameras, and even drones. He wasn't working officially now, but he knew the tools. That meant he might have helped Glenn set up the camera. He might have even been the one flying the drone. Maybe Glenn wasn't acting alone. Maybe Travis was really the one pulling the strings. Then something else happened. Late one night I took my dog outside like usual, and found the side gate wide open. That gate is always locked with a chain. The lock wasn't broken. It was just gone. My stomach dropped. I grabbed a flashlight and checked the yard. Nothing looked stolen, but in the garden bed, there were fresh boot prints. Large ones. Deep tread. Someone had been there. I called the sheriff again. They sent someone out. I showed them everything, the threatening note, the photos of the truck, the license plate, the drone footage. The deputy said, "We'll keep an eye out," but I could tell nothing would happen unless I caught someone in the act. So that's what I set out to do. I upgraded everything. New cameras, motion sensors, floodlights, and warning signs. I even set up decoys. Fake cameras in clear view, real ones hidden carefully. I wanted Travis to think I was paranoid, that I still felt powerless. I wanted him to feel confident. And then I waited. What happened next crossed the line. It was around 3 a.m. about a week later when my cameras picked up movement. I checked my phone and saw a live feed. Someone was in my yard. He wore a hoodie and held a flashlight. He didn't touch anything, just stood by the fence, looked up at my window, and walked off. That was all I needed. I took the footage to Maria. She pulled the files with timestamps and compiled everything into a detailed report. We sent it to the sheriff's office, and also to a civil attorney in town. At the same time, I filed for a second restraining order, this one against Travis. That same week, one of my neighbors told me someone had dumped trash on their lawn, broken electronics, loose wires, and a destroyed drone. Asked to take a look. It wasn't the exact drone that crashed in my yard, but it was the same model. And taped to its side was a small folded piece of paper. 3 words were written on it. "This isn't over." That was it. I had no intention of reacting anymore. It was my turn to make the next move. After that drone showed up, I realized something. This wasn't a prank or some petty revenge. I wasn't just being watched anymore. I was being hunted. The police still weren't doing much. They filed my second complaint. They documented the new evidence. But unless Travis entered my house or physically hurt me, they said there was little they could do. So I started digging deeper. I asked Maria to run a full background check on Travis. Not just surface-level stuff, but everything. Past addresses, employment history, phone records, even old social media accounts he thought were gone. And that's when we found something unexpected.